And we are the Coalition, loud and proud, outrage porn-free, civilly disobedient media, broadcasting live on the Worldwide Coalition Network here in the heart of the city we love, Providence, Rhode Island, the naked city, the city of, well, a few hundred, 1,000 stories. We've told a couple tonight. Daryl Gould, of course, political activist, educational activist, parents' rights activist, joined us from Bristol Warren School District to talk about some of the madness that's going on there, but also to paint a bright picture. A new superintendent who actually, well, I don't know, believes in getting down to basics, but at the same time is willing to be far less, what's the word politically these days, opaque, than the current school board might allow. Brittany Hunter of FEE just joined us for the first time. I hope she'll be back with us in the future. She talked about, of course, the Biden vice presidency, but more importantly, the record Joe Biden had from his senatorial days as a complete drug warlord, as someone who single-handedly has done more harm to the social structure of this nation than possibly any other candidate alive, any other politician alive. I am no fan of Donald Trump. I've never minced words about that. But at the same token, most of the pain, outside of the trade wars he's decided to engage us in, most of the pain has largely been rhetorical. He is a man who's clearly, his bark is far more dangerous seemingly than his bite. Unless, of course, you have a 401k. That's another story. Joe Biden, of course, was the architect of many of the laws that brought us the type of cultural and social breakdown that occurred in inner cities around the nation. And he is single-handedly responsible for that. And I fault the Democratic machine in this nation for allowing him to get away with what I'll call societal murder. Kamala Harris is a terrible human being. But Joe Biden, wow, astonishing. But let's get to what I call the Libertarian Hour here on the Coalition Talk Radio. Every week we try to bring people in who are subject matter experts, young folks, older folks who are engaged in, well, a philosophical, political, and cultural effort that has spanned a couple of generations and really is at the heart of how we live in America today. The Libertarian movement preaches nothing less than self-ownership, self-determination. We are the party that protects the ultimate minority, and that, of course, is the individual. We look to basic human rights ordained to us through birth. We do not look to government to provide for us, well, anything. And it is our sworn duty, if you will, to bring the Libertarian Party back to its roots and promote fundamental issues of liberty across a wide range of social issues. Education, the war on drugs, our monetary systems, trying like hell to create a true free market in this country, understanding and respecting free market capitalism as the mechanism by which the individual can fulfill their own human potential, and bringing that message to a generation, well, that seems to have missed it somehow. So it makes me very happy when not only do we meet writers, but when we meet community activists and political activists across the libertarian spectrum who are of a generation that may not have gotten quite the civics education they deserved, may not have been exposed to a lot of these, but yet somehow found them on their own. And it is my great pleasure to introduce for the first time in the Coalition, he's a local guy from just across the Great Divide in Rhode Island. By the way, if you're not from Rhode Island, understand that it's 44 miles tall and about 30 miles wide. Somehow he managed to find his way all the way from Connecticut to our studio live so he could join us in person. Lance Leduc, welcome to the Coalition, buddy.
Thank you, Pat. Thanks for having me.
And again, I guess what I'm thrilled about tonight is that the people that we're having on the show tonight are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, who might not have been alive, when people like Goldwater and Reagan at one point in their lives embraced small government.
I'm 35.
Before they went crazy. You're young.
1984. I was alive when Reagan was around, but
not
yeah.
not cognizant of your
I think you might know him a little bit better than myself.
Okay. But it's great stuff. So the question we always ask folks is, at what point in time, what was your libertarian moment? When did you understand that you needed to embrace liberty?
Sure. And I love this question. If I could, before I answer, kind of dig into that question a little bit. It's a question that I think for two reasons I really like it, and I've kind of come to realize it because it's a very common question in liberty circles when you listen to podcasts and radio shows like your own, and other questions. It's something that we're always curious about. The first reason is one that I think many libertarians would give as an answer, is that it separates us from the Democrats and the Republicans in the sense that, because what you're really asking is, how did you come to this philosophy, this ideology, this set of principles and stuff like that, which is language it doesn't really exist in the Republican and Democrat circles, right?
No, it does not.
No, so it separates us and gives us a little bit of a moral high ground there, I think, and so I like it in that sense. But the reason that I've learned to love it more recently is that I've realized it's one of the only common questions that are asking, a little bit about another person's personal history, about their upbringing and what brought them to the way that they're thinking now and stuff like that. And I think it's something that we're missing in the Libertarian Party a little bit. We're so good at numbers and data points and evidence and historical facts, and I mean that all as a compliment. I think those are the types that should drive, our talking points about how we want to govern or not govern in most cases. But I think it's important to remember that there is a human element that is important in order to build relationships in our communities where we're trying to win these local races and relationships and get people to trust you and stuff like that, is being able to talk to people and forget about some of the data points for just a minute.
And that's why we say take human action.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that take human action quote. So to answer your question, I don't know that there was one moment in particular when I look back, because I've had to answer this before. Like I said, it's a common question in libertarian circles. I think that now looking back, being 35 years old, looking back at my childhood, I quite literally grew up in the state. I grew up in foster care and group homes most of my childhood, and being able to, now at that time that's all I knew, right? So there was no ability to kind of reflect back. But now, and I've had the advantage in terms of this specific conversation of starting a career working with kids who come from disadvantaged backgrounds of all kinds and are in foster care and group homes and stuff like that. And I've worked in some of these residential centers and stuff like that, actually right here in Rhode Island for a long time. And being able to look back at the hundreds, if not thousands, of kids that I've worked with and my own life experience, and being able to realize all of the failures within just that one system of the state and their hands on that, and then looking back at what did actually help me when it came to either coaches or different adults that were in my life that were, it wasn't the state, it was just good people trying to do good things that are part of a community. And I was lucky enough at 14 years old to land in a household that I call them my foster parents to this day, but they're really, that's just because so that people understand my relationship with them. But they heard of myself and my siblings through a friend who was part of a church who kind of said, hey, we're struggling to have kids, we'd like to help. And they took us in, and we were no longer a ward of the state. And that's where the structure and the caring and the guidance and the counsel and all the things that help kids grow up, that's where all that started to happen for me. And those experiences all made me start questioning, as I got a little bit older, looking back at those things, like questioning, is government the answer to a lot of these problems? Then came the 2008 Ron Paul slapping Rudy Giuliani around on stage, and that's where there was kind of a merger for me between me questioning government and actual politics. That's kind of the long-winded version.
Yeah. So many folks in your age bracket, if you will, are products of the Ron Paul revolution.
Yes. Yeah.
It's profound. And in fact, Ms. Hunter was a product of the Ron Paul revolution.
We need another one. We need another one.
The question I always ask them when I find folks were part of that group where essentially you had philosophy and real world converge into one individual who was a spokesman for so many things, who was able to articulate a viewpoint, but in many cases gave word to the type of questions that a lot of us had in the back of our mind. It's that moment when you hear somebody say something, you're like, damn, that's what I've been, you have that hallelujah moment. If you're old enough to remember cartoons like I am, that's when, excuse me, that's when the light bulb went up over your head in the cartoons.
Yeah.
But the question I always have is a follow-up, and it's kind of a snarky political one.
I love those. It's okay.
The Republicans, if they had given Ron Paul his due,
How
Yeah.
different could the world be right now, right?
I go back to one of my least favorite politicians on the planet, who's still alive, and I'm talking about Willard Mitt Romney, although one could say politically he is the undead. All right, his treatment of Ron Paul in Massachusetts, and that happened across the country. The failure of the Republican Party, to give Ron Paul his due at the Republican National Convention, when I think my take on the situation was, all that organization was doing was asking for an opportunity to be on the main stage. They realized they'd lost. They were gentlemen about it, if you will. They just wanted an opportunity on the main stage to give voice to their political thoughts. How different would this world be? How different would the Libertarian Party be?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a couple of really good questions. I mean, I guess all we can do is sit here and guess, but I really wish that, because you're talking in 2008, he was probably in his late 60s, early 70s. I think the not the end to his political career, but all that he had done over decades of work could have kind of come to a little bit more of a beautiful manifest if he was allowed to, and it's too bad. But he still has so many followers, so many people that look up to him. He's basically my modern day political hero. He's who turned me, like I said, politically toward the Libertarian Party and towards the philosophy and the set of principles. And it's been an evolution since then. That's another thing that I talk about a lot is,
Right.
you don't wake up on Monday a statist and Tuesday all of a sudden you're like an anarcho-capitalist. You know what I mean? Like there's an evolution there, and I actually wish that that's something else that libertarians would embrace a little bit more, is that anybody who's willing to listen and willing to try to learn and willing to reduce the government at any turn and introduce liberty and help us toward liberty is an ally. And they'll slowly, like, my politics have evolved greatly since
Right.
2008, 2012, those years. And we're never gonna, I think we turn away a few too many people with the more holy than thou libertarian
Right.
kind of
Right. It's you wish, and we're going to talk about this extensively tonight. You wish that folks would be introduced more often at a libertarian caucus group or a meeting in
Yeah.
person than they would be meeting it for the first time on a Facebook chat room.
Yes.
And particularly when you meet so many people who claim to have such an interest in caring about the results of the Libertarian Party, when in fact they have absolutely no connection
Right.
to said Libertarian Party. And that's one thing that, I'm an activist, and I point out to people all the time, I'm probably the only person you're going to meet, after we chat online a little bit, that actually worked for the Richard Nixon campaign.
Yeah.
I sometimes I'll go to a meeting and say, "Hi, my name is Pat." "Hi, Pat. I was a neocon." I mean, I lost friends on 9/11. I used to work in the World Trade Center in New York.
Yeah.
So, to say that I would be lying if I wasn't one of the people in the days following the attack that was, I wasn't quite the type to drive a Dodge around with a pickup with a flag in the back, but I was ready to turn
Oh yeah.
parts of the Middle East into glass.
Yeah. Of
And,
course.
and that's, but then we grow up.
Right.
We
The revolution, the Ron Paul revolution. I always say the revolution is an evolution.
right.
We got to let people evolve and let people come to these understandings a little bit on their own, and we can be there to answer questions and help them with whatever and that's part of going back to building those relationships too. Like it all kind of ties together, and but there's a lot of people out there doing so much work.
Right.
So we're getting there. We're getting there.
No, and there is the Libertarian Party has one thing that's got no shortage of, is committees. And the Affiliate Support Committee, which is part of the committee, an active recognized committee of the Libertarian Party and the Libertarian National Committee, has gone together and working closely with something called the LSLA, which is the Libertarian State Leadership. On and on. Acronyms we got plenty of acronyms. I wish we had as much money as we have acronyms. But Josh Smith is the chairperson of the Affiliate Support Committee.
Yep.
And he and Aaron have come together with this idea called LP Everywhere.
Yep.
And it's the hashtag is sheer genius, because what it invokes is a contest, and I'll explain in a second, but what it invokes is the notion that the Libertarian Party needs to be everywhere. In fact, we are going to work towards the end of government and look towards self-governance, then we need to be ready to step up and be active in our communities. So the whole purpose of the contest that Aaron envisioned, and Josh is sort of working with Aaron and the committee, I'm part of the committee, has brought to the fore is the notion that individual affiliates, both on the hyperlocal as well as the state, would perform acts of activism, and that one who's judged the best by the party as a whole, after a little bit of screening by the affiliate committee, is eligible for a $1,000 prize.
Ah.
And that's the kind of positivity, because that instantly generates two things. Number one, activism is okay. Sometimes activism for the sake of activism is a wonderful thing. It may not have immediate political consequences,
Sorry.
but it breeds a positivity and a spirit of working togetherness, if you will, for, I don't know if that's a word or not, but a spirit of togetherness that we as a party, as a movement, as an organization, as a lifestyle, whatever you want to call us, that's what we need to do. We need to simply just get into the trenches more, side by side, and then all of a sudden, these how many angels on the head of a libertarian needle pin start to go away.
Right.
And it's more, instead of being, hey, that guy Smith, is, hey, Josh, can you help me with this?
Right. Yeah.
And so I'm thrilled about that. I mean, there are some incredible ideas that are bubbling up. I've been invited to go down to the New Mexico-Mexican border next weekend to work with the folks for a day or two and to just interview folks in Deming. I've been talking about it ceaselessly for weeks now about this, and then all of a sudden this came out of the blue with these folks in Deming, New Mexico, who as a antidote and a reaction to government refugee centers. And we've all seen the pictures.
Yeah.
I don't care about the terminology. We've all seen the notion that we've caged human beings. Both Democrats and Republicans have done it. I don't give a damn about that. But truly, this is libertarian AF. This community has got together and set up their own private response to it. And so recognize that in New Mexico. LPNM is going to send some people down. Holy cow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's powerful, powerful stuff.
Oh, it's an opportunity for us to be at the forefront of trying to do good work, and people see that we're not just the tin foil wearing hat. You know what I mean? Like we're trying to do good things and bring freedom and liberty to people, and but we got to do the work. We got to do the work.
We're going to talk extensively in a few minutes about county organization, but I just want you to give us what I try to do when I have folks on, particularly when I'm blessed and they can actually come in studio, because so much of this is often done by what I call the miracle of Skype and or telephone. What, in your opinion, let's move beyond the party for a second and to the greater body politic. What are the most important issues that we in this presidential and this national election need to address that will amplify what the libertarian message?
Well, I'm a big non-aggression principle guy, and I think most libertarians are. And for me, the foreign wars that we're fighting, and the amount of, because that spills over into so many other ways that we're aggressed upon, and people all over the world are aggressed upon, whether it's the money that's just being siphoned out of us in order to fund bombing people all over the world and just slaughtering people and aiding genocides in Yemen and all, it's just insane the amount of violence that we're partaking in that it gets a little coverage here and there, but they keep it quiet for a reason. We got troops in like over 100 countries. How would we feel if we saw, you name the country, any other, China, right? We just saw Chinese troops with military weapons walking down the street. That doesn't help make us more safe. So that's number one. I think our foreign policies have made us more unsafe. I think the endless amounts of money that we've not given to it, that's been taken from us and put towards it without really our consent. I think if most Americans were allowed to say, hey, you get to vote on whether or not your money goes to this, and then we were really it was explained to us, this is what your money is going towards, and just specifically talking about the violence that we're unleashing across the planet, I'm pretty positive that the vast majority would not be for that at all. But it still happens involuntarily, and I think so. For me, war, even if you take away, which you can't, it's probably the single most important part of war. All these millions and millions of people who are being murdered. Even if you take that away, there's so many other ways that people are being aggressed upon that all go back to just our foreign affairs and our foreign policies that have gotten so outside of where we were supposed to be at a couple hundred years ago as a country when it came to dealing with the rest of the world. So for me, that's the single biggest issue.
What do you think in your mind happens? I mean, how do we go from, a George W. Bush who says that he's not a nation builder to him becoming one of the most failed but significantly largest attempts at nation building in our country's history? A guy like Donald Trump who criticizes that very same involvement, and yet right now, thanks to him, we're bombing the Liberty into Yemen.
Right, yeah.
Droning the Liberty into Yemen, to the Yemeni people. How?
And we were this close into going into Venezuela, too. Like,
Oh, yeah.
he was championing it. Yeah, I mean, it was.
If certain other countries hadn't called our bluff,
Yeah, right.
he was
Yeah.
ready to. We call it here at the coalition Operation Change the Subject. Clinton invented the term when he bombed the aspirin factory
Yeah.
after he got found doing the hooky dookie with Monica Lewinsky.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right, and that's just what the Venezuelan people need right now.
Yeah, right.
You know,
That'll help him. Yeah, I don't know. I think, I think it kind of speaks largely to a couple different things. One, obviously, these politicians are just lying to us in order to win over the votes. But in addition, I think that, we've seen it, and we don't have to get into it. But recently, it seems to be that the vast majority of the country, regardless of what side of the political spectrum you're on, is kind of they're seeing the forest through the trees when it comes to this Epstein situation.
right.
So I think maybe when things like that happen and people come together and realize, like, hey, this might not just be some wacky conspiracy. Like, there might really be some really powerful people that are beyond any elected officials that are really pulling all the strings here. And I think that, no matter who gets elected right now with the state of the world, really, and some of that spills over into like the world banking and a much more complex conversation. But I think that yes, Trump said that he was going to end all these wars and bring all these troops home, but we've seen perpetuated war all over the Middle East and all over the world. Wherever there's opiates and oil, we're delivering freedom, right? Like that seems to be the MO. But
Well, and the level of arms sales.
yeah, right.
I mean, that's the perfect storm. You've got failed foreign policy meets corporate cronyism.
It's a business for them. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that there's too much to be gained, and there's too many people in power that I think are really pulling all the strings. That, one thing, again, he said it doesn't seem to be happening, but draining the swamp. It was a pretty good political slogan because it sure does need to happen. Is Trump doing it? I don't think so, but we do need to we need to hit the reset button because there is so much wrong with everything that's going on nationally and across the world that, even our own rights and our own freedoms are slowly being eroded. If you compare it to Venezuela, sure, it looks like we're, land of the free, but when you look at where we were at one time, it's coming, but there's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of work to be done. That's what I always go back to.
It's a great segue into the next question. The party is at a crossroads. There's no doubt. We as a party have this unhealthy obsession with the presidential race. But on the other hand, that same presidential race is that which very often gives us ballot access
Right.
in a variety of states. Yet at the same time, we have failed to put forward presidential candidates who, as I often say, articulate a clear picture of libertarian philosophy. And I'm not drilling down to the really, the fine points, but just in general. By the way, Gary Johnson was the very first national libertarian I ever spoke to. I have to talk about a radio call I made to him in the run-up to 2012 election, driving on a late night road in Massachusetts. Some guy's on the radio talking about small government, and then I call in, and all of a sudden I'm on the phone with Gary Johnson. That's how I'm here tonight. It's to be won. But at the same time, you look to the lost opportunities of 2016. I'm not going to criticize Gary Johnson. I'll criticize like hell the other guy. But so in my IMHO, as you guys say, you youngins say, I believe firmly that our political future lies, in a sense, us running as strong a candidate as we can, as libertarian a candidate as we can for presidency, understanding that we're not going to win, but putting a lot of our effort into developing candidates at the hyper-local level who can be on school boards, be on water boards, be on representative town meetings, I think is what they do in Connecticut.
Yeah.
And understanding that ways of life can be changed by those people if we get them elected, and then get them into the, get them at the core base level to start to eliminate government, and then have them move up the food chain.
Yeah.
What from Connecticut's perspective, you've got a lot of the same issues as Rhode Island. You've got a failing state financially.
That's the truth.
Businesses leaving like you read about.
Oh yeah.
General Electric being the most famous. What are some of the challenges Connecticut faces, and how would you, in Connecticut, balance that need for ballot access, yet at the same time, someone like yourself, who's working at the very local level, at a high level at the local level.
Sure.
I'm not diminishing, by the way, just because it's national versus local.
Oh no, I understand.
I
Yeah.
consider, quite honestly, the work that's being done at the hyper-local level to be the most important work of the Libertarian Party right now. How do you balance it all in Connecticut?
Well, it's a good question because I think that, I mean, I don't want to speak for all libertarians in Connecticut, but I think that most would agree that it's, one hand washes the other. Without the national, like you said, getting the ballot access in, most people that, especially most Americans, they don't really pay attention to politics, especially at the very, very local level, that often. They vote every 4 years because those are the elections that, they see the people on TV up on the stage and they listen to those, and then they go from there. So in order to get people to even hear the word libertarian or open up their minds to what we're about, the philosophy, the principles, stuff like that, you need somebody on that stage or on that level who is doing a good job. I agree with you. I think most realistic libertarians would agree. We're not looking to win the president. I mean, it would be great, but I don't think it's realistic to expect that we're going to win a presidential bid in 2020 or even in 2024. But what we need, and I alluded to this a little bit earlier, is another like Ron Paul wave. We need another voice up there who, and it's a difficult balance. It's difficult to find people like this. But what I think Ron Paul was really good at was that he didn't sacrifice the party principles, but was able to still be palatable and help people understand on their level, in their living room, at their job, with their kids, their local schools, how liberty could help. And he did a magnificent job of then showing how the big government that we had at that time and still have now was hurting all of those things that I just said. And to not be able to sacrifice principles but still be palatable is sometimes where we at the national level seem to struggle. A guy, who I think is really good at it, but I don't think has any interest currently in running for president, who's to me like a Ron Paul 2.0, is like Larry Sharp. I think he's really good at being able to relate to people, being able to have that sense of charisma, that sense of helping people understand the party without sounding crazy. You know what I mean? And
but what's interesting though is so many of the issues that we were once thought crazy on are coming full circle.
It's coming. It's coming. I'm a little bit younger than you. I'm 35, but even just in my in the few years that I've been politically involved and even just interested in politics, I've seen things, even to the best of my knowledge, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think we were the first party to say, like, why should the government be telling you who you can't marry to consenting adults, right? Mm-hmm. And even the Democratic Party, as of back in when Hillary was running, it was civil unions. You know what I mean? So even they've had to slowly.
They were afraid to make the next step.
Right.
And the important distinction being, I think that in the case of civil unions, here you had again government had to be the ones to give a blessing on a relationship.
Right.
So what I try to explain all the time, because Rhode Island, I can't give you a good Connecticut equivalent. I don't know, take Bridgeport, Greenwich, and Norwalk and make it a state. But, in Rhode Island, we are the bluest state in America. Us and Vermont are duking it out for the bottom of the heap. And, so very often, free market ideas are just so completely foreign to them. And so what I try to explain to people is that we don't endorse a particular behavior. We trust you enough as an individual to make your own decision as to what behaviors you want to engage in, as long as it accrues no harm to anyone else.
Right.
If you choose to be in a monogamous relationship as man and man, woman and woman, and you're happy,
Right.
that's fabulous.
Right, and that's just one example of how, like you said, it seems like everybody else is catching up to us, right? I mean,
Right.
now you even got Tulsi Gabbard recently standing up there and, like, I think doing a great job when it comes to this one particular issue of just blasting the wars. Now, like we just spoke about, we've seen this, we've seen this play out before, but I just think at every level you're starting to see certain, even the Republican Party as a whole is starting to shift a little bit more libertarian and getting away from,
It's survival for them.
it has to be, right?
they-
And it's sad that that's what's pushing them there, but
But at the same time, if you, the one, I believe, most unremarked effect of the current administration is that there is no doubt in anyone's minds right now, if they're being at all intellectually honest, which is hard for a Republican, right, that they have repudiated small government, that they have repudiated responsible financing for government, they have repudiated personal liberties because they continue to engage in their scope of civil asset forfeiture. They engage in laws like FOSTA and SESTA, which criminalize communication between folks who are engaged in sex work that has nothing to do with trafficking. They continue to redeploy the failed model of the war on drugs on other parts of our lives. They have eliminated any claim they have to being the party of small business and the party of personal freedom in this country as a result of this election.
yeah. So it's kind of, I mean, I agree 100%. I think it's good to see the Republican Party slowly drifting back towards individual liberty and that model of smaller government. But what I hope is that many Republicans who aren't, completely brainwashed can look at that and say, yeah, but can I really trust you? Are you just doing this to win over my vote? But this isn't what you're really gonna, you know what I mean? Like, because if they're only doing it in a reactionary sense now, they're not doing it because it was, like I was talking about earlier, it's not embedded in their philosophy, it's not embedded in their principles or anything like that. So I'm hoping that people can start to see it. I have seen shifts, even with, marijuana is being legalized throughout the country. It's bringing a lot of safety to people's lives by a little bit less involvement with police. It's bringing police safety that they need, I think, in a lot of ways, and bringing people a much safer alternative for medicating themselves and stuff like that. That's a philosophy that the Libertarian Party has had for a very long time. Like, it's your body, as long as you're not harming anyone else. You're an adult that's consenting with yourself, really, to do what you want to do with your own body. Go ahead and put whatever you want into your own body. You'll have to live with the consequences of such, but it was your own choice. The gay marriage, like we said, you're hearing a lot of Republicans talking now more about how, they're not fiscally responsible. The Republicans have pretty much owned a lot of the government over the past 4 years, and we've deficits are climbing, debts are climbing, spending's climbing. We got tariffs now. We got everything's getting more and more. They're not being fiscally responsible. So what is it that what promises are they fulfilling? So I think it is, to go back to what you originally asked. You're starting to see a shift. It's gonna take work. It's gonna take a long time. And going back to the national versus local, we need somebody up there that can deliver our messages and create another wave, so that people at the local level aren't running into people who have never heard of Libertarian Party before and who have no idea about the philosophy and what it is we stand for. But one hand washes the other. I think the local level, it's hard for a national, election to go well without states doing well. It's hard for states to do well without, because you need the ground troops, and it's hard for the states to do well without the county affiliates and the town affiliates, and having, people that are, you can blast out an email and within a couple days have people that are going to show up to an event that you're doing, or whatever the case may be. So. One hand kind of washes the other. I don't see one as more important than the other. I do think that they both help each other, but they should both have different goals. I don't think the goal for the current presidential. It's not that we have to champion this, but we should be realistic in the sense that we're just trying to cause a stir, get our message out there, and create another wave like Ron Paul was able to.
Right, and get the ballot access.
Yes, right. Yes,
The
that ballot access is key, and that's helping the local affiliates as well in the states. So,
If you're just joining us, Lance Leduc is here. He's driven in from Connecticut. He's an activist within the Connecticut Libertarian Party. He's joining us what we call here the Libertarian Hour, where we have activists, state leaders, affiliate leaders, as in his case, folks who are really span the entire libertarian spectrum, giving their perspective on issues challenging the libertarian community, as well as the body politic at large. It's a lot of fun to actually have someone in studio here in Little Rhodey. Great local team, great local libertarians. People like Billy Hunt, Mike Rinaldi. But at the same time, there's kind of you feel kind of alone sometimes. Alone sometimes.
well, you got a nice view of downtown Providence.
Hey, the no one's twerked in front of the window tonight.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah. So it's great to have someone sneak across the enemy lines and bring us at least some mental support here. Let's talk about the affiliates.
Yeah.
And because you're very, very active in Connecticut at building local affiliates. Now, folks who are only passingly familiar with the Libertarian Party, by definition, we have 50 state affiliates and the District of Columbia, as well as some other outlying bodies, but largely it's the 50 states and the District of Columbia. There is been now, over time, periodically, the growth of what I'll call hyper-local affiliates. That's certainly not to diminish their importance, because they're critically important. If you go back to even the Tammany Hall days of American politics were hyper-localized. Back in the days of New York City, Tammany Hall, Gotham, you had community organizations, as they sometimes call themselves, pop up on a block-by-block basis.
Yeah.
And what they represented were the interests of a potentially infinitely small group of people who recognized that there was power to be had when people, if I can use the term collective, but the people coalesced into interest groups under the guise of a much larger organization. And they sought to, at the hyper-local level, control, or at least fight for, some level of control and or input into not just the politics of that community, how big or small, but then also provide as a source of support and growth to funnel those efforts up into the larger community. Across this country, both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party have infinite numbers of county organizations, statewide chairmen's organizations, municipalities, all of whom have got political committees involved in focusing on that particular slice of geography, wherever they might be. That's how you build a political party. Now, there are those in the movement who, we're building a political party. As a libertarian, I'm never going to tell another libertarian what to do, because no, you are not being detained. All right? But we need to recognize that the ability to disseminate information, messaging, and at the same time to become more involved in those events is based on our ability on a highly local level to be involved, to be at the table, if you will. And with that, and that means if you're looking to replace government, that you actually be there, involved in activities that actively replace government.
Yeah.
Let's say something maybe a little controversial here. As a closet history fan, as a casual history fan, I'm certainly no expert. I just play one on the radio. Terrorist organizations, we define them as terrorists, but let's just say a variety of groups across the country, which Americans would portray as terrorists, have learned that it's with that hyper local leadership, in some cases providing the type of welfare support and the type of community support necessary, that they've won the hearts and minds. And when you look at different political organizations and their success level, it's that type of involvement which brings people in to listen, and to listen to what you have to say. So I'm not trying to equate the Democratic Party or the Republican Party with terrorist organizations, but quite frankly, they have one sense of commonality. They all act as replacements, if you will, whether it be in access to jobs or whatever, for government. How are we going to replace government if we don't have at least that same mental involvement? Those folks have the candy to hand out.
Right.
We're trying to get people to be independent. We can't do that unless we're literally boots on the ground. So tell us about your background in Connecticut, what lessons you've learned, and what you would like to bring to people so that we can just do a much better job of it.
Sure, yeah. It's kind of where I've had a hard time. So I only, going back to, my story as a child, and that's how I started questioning government, and then, the Ron Paul movement was what merged politics with that. But then there was like a 10-year window from 2008 to 2017, 18, where I was interested in politics. I was staying up on things. I was reading, whether it be your Rothbard or your Hayek or whatever, just learning about the philosophy and staying involved in terms of kind of trying to know what was going on politically. But I wasn't personally active. Then around it was last summer, so it's actually only been a year, believe it or not, but it's flown by. Last summer, I picked up the phone and contacted my state chair, Dan Reale, who I'm pretty sure you're
Dan's
familiar
pretty
with.
good. Yep. Dan's been kind enough to come out to a couple of our events.
Yeah, I said to him, listen, I want to help. I want to become a little bit more active. It seems to me locally is the real only answer and possibility for somebody like me who's never had any political activism at all. And it started with one phone number. He gave me one guy's number. His name was Russ. He lived in Brooklyn, Connecticut, which is, 3 towns south of where I live. And he said, start there. And that was if anybody listening is interested in building an affiliate, in becoming more politically active locally, and working towards liberty locally, take solace in the sense, well, you're not alone. And that's exactly, so for years I had actually questioned, like, what can I do? But, where the Libertarian Party isn't as accessible, and we don't have as many boots on the ground, like you said, we don't have the troops and the activity going on where you can just be a libertarian in your living room one night and say, hey, I want to be a little bit more active. Let me Google real quick and find out where the next, town committee event for the Democratic Party is. Or for, libertarians don't have that liberty. So I felt really alone. And when I tell this story, I always tell people how alone I felt. And now over the past year, how I feel like I could turn in any direction to find help.
Right.
So the people are out there. It's just you have to get up off your couch, make a couple phone calls, reach out, find me on Facebook, message me. I know the state chair now of Rhode Island. I know the state chair in Connecticut. I'm familiar with a couple people in Massachusetts. Find somebody. There are people out there that are willing to help. That's where it all has to start, and that's where I started. I got that one number. Myself and the gentleman Russ, we spoke on the phone a few times and kind of hashed out what we envisioned and what we wanted to do. We knew this first year was going to be a lot of just building it, and we might not run any candidates, but just kind of the boring stuff, to be honest, sifting through bylaws and electing, our, chair and vice chair and secretary and the roles and all that stuff. But all that stuff that, speaking to what you were saying before, like that structure and that organization that the Democrats and the Republicans have, we need that. We need that critically at the hyper local level, to steal your phrase, in order to start building success. So once Russ and I spoke, soon after, a gentleman named Roger, he was actually recently our vice chair. He stepped down, our state vice chair, Roger Mizbach. I don't know if you know him. Great guy. He helped me a lot, and he brought to me a piece of software, TabbyCat software that our state secretary had developed. Jeff, another great guy who I've met a few times, and he developed a piece of software where you could plug in any town in the state and then scroll down and click Libertarian or Republican or Democrat or unaffiliated, wherever it is, and all of their addresses just popped up. So anybody that was a registered Libertarian in any town in the state, you had that information. With that, we went door knocking. Myself and Roger hit 2 or 3 towns. It was, I'll tell you, you're not really cold calling. Anybody that registers as a Libertarian is, you know what I mean? Like, you're not, it's not a cold call. You're not going to be told to scram to beat it. I haven't heard that once. I've probably canvassed almost every town or myself or other people in my county affiliate have canvassed almost every town in Windham County, which is like roughly 10 towns. And we haven't once met somebody that was quite literally, get the hell off my lawn. Most people are either fairly open to it and just surprised that somebody's trying to start something and organize, or actually what we run into a lot is the person who's registered is active duty military and they're not home, which is good to see. But every Libertarian knows a lot of the military actually supports the Libertarian Party, which doesn't really come as a surprise to me.
Because when we respect the military, we respect them so much that we don't want to send them off on an unnecessary war.
And they know they're in these baloney circumstances that, they know after, a lot of military people I've spoken to, they'll tell you after their first year or two of duty, they understand if they've actually had to go abroad, that, they're kind of like, well, what the heck are we doing over here? Right. So, so that's kind of how we built things up, and I drafted up a little letter that basically just said, hey, I'm from here, I'm one of you, I'm a dog owner, I'm a homeowner, I work in this area. In all those areas of life, I don't really feel alone, but as a Libertarian, I do. Come to find out, there's hundreds of us just in this one county. And we got that letter out we either left the letter at the door when people weren't home, or we knocked and had great conversations with a lot of people. And we've done that a few times, held a couple meet and greets, which kind of goes back to your point about hopefully more Libertarians can meet people, other Libertarians face to face at a meet and greet, as opposed to through social media or something like that. We've had some meet and greets, and now we have a pretty active party where 10, 15 people show up to monthly meetings. We're trying to get on a local radio station in Windham County soon to talk a little bit. We have somebody running on the Board of Finance in Plainfield, Connecticut, the Board of Education, who we actually have a sitting Libertarian, Matt Radant, who's our chair, our county chair, is a sitting Libertarian on the Board of Education. He's running again. So we're getting to work, and now we've got hundreds of Libertarians all around the county that at least know we exist and they know where to find us. We have, we're building an email bank. We're all these things that you were talking about that need to happen in order to have success at the state level, which then maybe can parlay over into success at the national level.
Right.
It's all. Sorry, I could talk about this all night, man.
No.
This is the part I'm excited about.
This is the building blocks.
Yeah, and now I've actually helped. The model worked pretty well. I mean, we're less than a year old, and to the best of my knowledge, in terms of active members who are showing up monthly to meetings and being active, we're the largest affiliate in the state, and we've only been in existence for under a year. So I've been helping other people in the state, along with Roger, build some more affiliates. We just built one that kind of just got recognized by the state a couple months ago down in Naugatuck Valley. I got somebody else I'm going to help over the fall out in Litchfield County on the other side of the state. So it's the part of the movement that I've realized is something that I'm passionate about and something that saw some success with. And I think that if you're not passionate about it, because there's a lot of work, right? There's a lot that has to go into it.
You're not going to make any money doing this.
Yeah, no, you're not going to make any money. So you got to find something that you're passionate about, so that way you can enjoy yourself a little bit, and I enjoy meeting people from all over the state. And
How much fun is it when you connect with a complete stranger and you have that, again, the light bulb goes off and you look at each other and you're saying, and very often that person's like, really? You're a libertarian? You know?
It's like that your stepbrothers. Did we just become best friends? Like it's just a line from the movie. It's I'm not a shy person. Anybody who knows me, I could, I could.
I'm not picking up that vibe either.
Yeah. I'm not a shy person, so I enjoy meeting people in general. And I'm a big sports fan. I'm a dog owner. There's so many different things that I enjoy talking about.
And you love baseball.
Oh yeah. That's it's kind of, yeah. I coach a lot for people who don't know. I'm a varsity head coach for a softball team. I coach actually a travel team out of Rhode Island. Give a lot of private lessons, and it's kind of my thing. It's another thing that I'm passionate about, which makes it feel like it's not work, right?
Well, and you and I are looking forward to the postseason this year, aren't we?
we are. We are. For those who don't know, and I'm in the enemy's den here in Providence, but I'm a big Yankee fan. I lived in New York for a very long time, so through most of my childhood. So huge Yankees fan. About as big of a Yankees fan as you'll meet. So I'm looking forward to it.
I know somebody in the room who's bigger. On a couple levels.
Yeah. Well, no, but yeah, we have a rooting interest there. But I enjoy talking with people and meeting new people and finding common ground. But very rarely do you find somebody who's a libertarian.
Right.
So when you do find that person, you're right. It's almost like a wait a minute.
Well, in 2016, you'd be driving down 95, and you'd see someone with a Johnson Weld sticker on, and you'd do this.
Yeah.
And other libertarians, after the first time it happened, they realized right away what you're trying to do. They realized you weren't trying to get other people.
Right. Yeah.
You're like this, and you're hanging out the vote, and you're driving, and you're trying to find your Johnson Weld sticker so you could do this.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I'm not a crazy person. I'm on your team. Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of like that.
Meanwhile, you're causing accidents, and you're right.
Status deserving. No, that's great.
Yeah, so that's another. It's a great benefit is you're meeting people who have similar, and it helps you to not feel alone. That was the part that for me, because I didn't know where to start, what to do. Luckily Matt Radant, who's on the board of ed in my county, and is running again. He's our chair, and when I took over, I just kind of assumed because I was starting the whole thing, I was going to have to be chair, but I was going to need a lot of help because I was no Robert's Rules expert. I didn't know, you know what I mean? So, but luckily I met somebody who, little did I know, was, an elected libertarian 2 towns south of me who had been going to these public meetings of that type that were following Robert's Rules and everything and kind of knew the political landscape. So it was like, hey, this guy should be, and trust me, he was the right guy for the job. And now he's led us. He's our MVP by far, in my opinion. And I probably don't say that to him enough. But he, you just don't know that these people are out there. And there's so many people with different areas of expertise. We have this guy, Mike, who comes every month. He's helped us put together, a web page, and he's linking the state page to our county page and all of our social media accounts and all these other things. So there's all these people that are out there that have these different skill sets who are also, fans of liberty, who want to help and want to get together and work towards a common goal. And they're out there. People, if you're listening, they're out there. You just got to get up and move and do it. Like I said, find me on social media. Find somebody. These people are out there. If you're looking to get active and start something in your area, and you'll be surprised how many neighbors you have in your town that are libertarians. Like, that shocked me. You know what I mean? Like, so they're out there. It's just in order to build that structure and know where to turn. Like I said, you could pick up the phone or Google real quick and find the next, town Republican committee in a second. And in order for us to get to that point, we need to start building up some of these affiliates.
Right. And to that point, sometime this weekend or early next week, I need you to email me all the contact information for all the affiliates, because we're trying to build up, and if folks hear this now or in the coming days, we're trying to build up a database of county and local affiliates so that the affiliate support committee now and in the future can reach out and provide, support.
Yeah, that's a great thing that Josh and crew are doing. I've never met Josh personally, but I've interacted with him plenty of times online. We're in the same caucus, and he and I have been on some of the same conference calls and stuff like that. And I think it's a great idea. I don't know if he was the one behind it or who exactly was behind the idea.
Well, we all give credit to Erin Adams. It was her.
Well, hats off to her then, because like you
also-
said, it's where we need a lot of help is those local affiliates.
Yeah, and she also went out and got the funding. So there is, I haven't mentioned, you're gonna start to see social media right after Labor Day, but the hashtag is LP Everywhere. And, the whole notion is that if you're a local affiliate, a state affiliate, whoever, an act of activism, document it, film it, take pictures, whatever, send it to us. There is an affiliate support committee that you can, the Facebook page. There's also a Twitter, and the Twitter account, by the way, is LP Everywhere 1. Somebody, some Lincoln Park fan. I got LP Everywhere. Jeez. But, whatever. But, we're going to take that, and the top prize gets a gee whiz, and the money's already there. And that's awesome, but again, there's some people coming up with some pretty strong efforts. These New Mexico folks, holy cow, talking about going down to the border. We don't want anyone to be blown away with that. We want you to try and top that. I don't know if you can, but I trust on the competitive spirit of fellow libertarians to come out with ideas that are going to impress and take the world by storm. And oh yeah, by the way, it's also the right thing to do. And oh yeah, by the way, you're going to see people's attitudes change once they understand that you're part of the community. Issues can also drive a local affiliate, particular issues that impact the community. I think it's important for all local affiliates to say, okay, we can have the issues that we care about, but what is it that's driving a local community? A couple of years ago, we got a lot of play because we opposed public subsidies of a baseball stadium, and we got a lot of press. And I would tell all libertarian affiliates, a true win for an issue is fighting corporate welfare. Number one, because it strikes directly at our free market principles. It's an insult to that. You're going to hear time and time again, particularly Republicans say, well, it's the way things are done. No, it's not the way things are done anymore. But the unanticipated side effect for us of making a name fighting corporate welfare is that my liberal friends, my progressive friends, could no longer look at the Libertarian Party and use the term corporatist, Koch brothers, fill in the blanks with all the cliches. Because, oh, by the way, guess who was out picketing, guess who was testifying against corporate welfare in real time? Well, not just arcane issues that might be part of the federal legislation, but corporate giveaways that were happening right in our community. I can't think of a single win-win issue that can dominate local politics and at the same time put our progressive friends on their heels than that one.
Yeah, no, and I think the key there too is that there was activism happening. We weren't just talking about it online. We weren't just, it was, because that activism, people that aren't in the libertarian circles don't see the libertarian conversations on libertarian forums on Facebook.
Right.
They don't see, so like you said, these progressives that, we're sitting there saying, hey, we're not for corporate welfare. We're not, like, all this garbage that you keep accusing us of is not, like, synonymous with what it is we really believe in. And the corporate welfare is part of what's working against actual free market capitalism, but in order for them to believe that, because they're not in those little echo chambers that we talk in, it does help when they're driving down the road and they see their neighbor standing there with a sign who they know is a libertarian who's out there picketing against that behavior. When they drive down the road or, they go to their local community event at, some local, like I know Providence has the River Fires, and over in Connecticut we have, a First Friday thing over in the Putnam area where I live. And, when people are setting up at those things and having their own little booths and their own little tables, and you can talk to them and they're saying, and you're hearing from libertarians that they're on your side on this issue, that's when they start to believe you. That's when they start. So that activism, that local getting out and taking human action, like you alluded to earlier, is just, it's so critical on so many levels, and it's what starts building things to a point that I think, maybe sometime in my lifetime I'm not saying, well, the point of the presidency isn't to win. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I don't think we're ever going to get there if we don't really build up these local affiliates and the local ground troops that we need to get a lot of the work done.
Right. And I'm certainly not trying to dissuade when I say that. Any one of the number of candidates locally, I'm sorry, on a national level, who are trying to run. I've got a personal fame myself, but a frank realization is that if you get someone started at the local level and they start out on, I mean, wow, think of the opportunities a libertarian has being part of a board of education.
Yeah, we have one in my county, and he's done, and it's amazing. He's seen, I've talked to him personally about it, and over the past few months in particular, he's seen the entire town in through a couple of actions get behind him at these meetings, because they're getting sick of a lot of the baloney, and it's just, and he's done it through earning the trust of the people of the community and being active and getting out there and doing the work. There's only so much typing on a keyboard you can do.
Right.
You got to get out there and do.
Right, and Kara Schultz, who's so effective in supporting candidates, is a winning candidate for herself in Minnesota on a sizable town council. And again, as she was on the show, and she talked about how important it is once you're in those organizations, since you are representing a whole lot of people.
Yeah.
And very often, the folks that you're meeting with are dealing with a libertarian on a business level, all right, for the very first time, that how important it is that you equip yourself effectively as a leader. And, we talk about, bringing personal control back into public education. On any significant issue, there's two approaches, if you will. There's the philosophical approach, and then there's studying the practical, pragmatic issues surrounding the issue. In my early stages of activism, I focused solely on the pragmatic issues, because that's what I thought would sell. And I realized I was getting short shrift to the philosophy. An example of that would be, of course, we opposed baseball stadium. I often use that just as an object lesson, something we did a good job on. And very often in the beginning, there were 2 rounds of this battle. In the first round, I was basically spent all my time trying to teach people about economics. We did it as a group, and how this was doomed to failure financially. And people very often, when particularly in the media, we do a good job in Rhode Island and earn media. People in the media would say, "Listen, I understand you're opposed to this whole business, private-public partnership thing, but," and we would let them get away with that. But now, the word track I happen to use, not saying it's the best, there's probably better, is hold on. I'm not going to let you just drive over that philosophical speed bump. Let's talk about why government should not be involved in free markets. Let's understand the philosophy. Listen, I can cite chapter and verse even now why taxpayer investments in these stadiums are an utter failure on an actual practical level. But the important thing on any of these issues is that we simultaneously take the opportunity to educate people as to not just on a fiscal level why they were failed, but on a moral and philosophical level why they're wrong. And that is a hard that's a hard battle to fight, but it's as our good friend Larry Sharp likes to say, you're planting seeds.
Yeah.
And some will grow quickly, some will not, some will get trampled, some will get beer poured on them, but
Every once in a while, a tree grows.
well, and you know what?
Yeah, right.
I just remember a year or 2 ago, sitting there listening to our favorite talk radio culture is huge in Rhode Island. Listen to a talk radio show, and someone gets on the air, and they start talking about how government should not be involved in free markets. I'm like, screech! What?
Yeah.
This was just, not, obviously a politically involved person, but no one in any party. I don't know if we had any input into that. I'd like to think we had a little. But when all of a sudden you hear your talking points that are being absorbed by the community just through sheer repetition, knocking on doors, having events, testifying, that's taking human action at the highest level. And that's when all of a sudden you realize victory isn't imminent, a lot of battles to go, but the one thing I would preach to you is to savor the small successes, and
Yeah.
particularly the large ones. Always take a moment out to say, hey, Dan Fishman's campaign. Dan ran to be the auditor for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. He got the endorsement of, was it 2 or 3 of the 4 largest newspapers in the state, including the Boston Globe. That's remarkable. Even the Boston Globe and the endorsement kind of alluded to the fact that this was remarkable. But Dan developed a campaign focus, had a clear message, did a wonderful job of interspersing libertarian ideals in it, and brought that to a lot of people to such a level that one of the largest papers in the country not only embraced his approach, but actually endorsed it.
Yeah.
Now Dan ultimately didn't win. Did a hell of a job on a couple of different levels, but we have to, as a movement, always take time to celebrate, whether it be Dan or your success at the county level, Kara Schultz. Savor them,
Yeah.
learn from them, and try to carry that forward.
Well, we're up against so much.
Right.
So that's what I think recognizing those successes along the way is important, and I appreciate you saying that because it's something that I've had to. I'm my own worst enemy in a lot of ways, and one of them is that I'm kind of a perfectionist. I don't like losing. I don't like, So when you see the constant roadblocks and speed bumps that are put in front of you, and sometimes walls built literally right in front of you, it does get frustrating. So I have to reflect back, and I'm surrounded by enough good people that can let me know, like, yeah, well, hey, look what you have done in the past year, and look what you and Tara did over there, and look what Ethan and Mike did over there, and whatever the case may be. And then you look back and you're like, okay, yeah, and now we got 2 people running in one of our towns. So yeah, you have to recognize the successes when they come, because it keeps you sane and it keeps you remembering what it is you're working towards.
I'm going to paraphrase and do probably a really bad job of probably ruining a quote that Jeffrey Tucker said.
Oh boy, here we go.
But he talked about living quiet lives. We all lead quiet lives of anarchy every day. It's part of our lives.
I like it.
We make decisions for ourselves. We move in directions on our own. When that happens on a slightly larger scale, celebrate it, and then take a moment to reflect to see how you can repeat it.
Yeah.
And that's why I think Jeffrey's one of the best, because he's one of these people that can articulate what is in the back of people's minds. He brings words to and thought to that which you've been struggling to sort of bring together, and we need more of that as well.
Yeah.
So so if I walk away from the Lance Leduc lessons on local libertarianism, like that?
Yeah. Sure.
5 L's, okay?
That's the deep lessons on local libertarianism.
Use whatever data source you have to identify libertarians as a first step. If you've got party registrations, great. If you don't, whatever you can find.
And just, if I can cut in right there, what I was going to do until I was made aware of that software, you can usually approach it. There's a lot more work here, but again, you got to get up and do the work if you want it, or it's not going to get done. Most towns, you can find, it's public information.
Right. In those states where you're fortunate enough to have it.
Yeah, I just happen to have, right, well, that's true too, but, yeah, that's right, because some states, you can't register libertarian.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, but in the states where you can, it's public information, you can go out there and get it. I was just lucky enough to have our state secretary, Jeff, who put together this piece of software and made it really easy for us.
But the next part, okay, don't diminish the next part. You and your partner got out there and engaged in a door knocking campaign, which in an age when people are getting spammed on their phone calls and cell phones, in an age when people are bombarded with social media, and in an age when no one reads their emails, and an age where it is increasingly difficult to not forget about actually changing hearts and minds, forget about educating people, simply to establish contact with them. There's the incorporation of you using both current technology and old school, hi, my name's Lance.
And you know what?
It's particularly compelling.
It is, and I'm glad that you're saying this, because one thing that I guess I was amazed by, because of some of the things that you're talking about, where, think about the last time somebody knocked on your door. Right, I'm lucky enough at 35 that I've lived in both eras, where before cell phones, but now most of my adult life has been, nobody just shows up unannounced anymore.
Right.
But when I was a kid, like you hear a knock at the door, everybody goes running, oh, who's here, right? That doesn't happen anymore. Somebody knocks at your door, you're like, whoa, and you're like peeking out the windows to see, right? So I expected a little bit more resistance than what was there, but I said, you know what, I just got to do the work. I'm being honest here. I have not. I think because the libertarian community is what it is, and that like we were saying earlier, like you meet a libertarian, you're like, wait a minute, really? You know what I mean? So that same human interaction happened at their doors. And most of the people were like, oh, wait, really? I didn't know we had an affiliate. I didn't know we had and so most of it was met with either like a very positive, interaction where they were just surprised and glad to see that somebody was trying to get something started, or literally the other majority of it was the registered libertarian wasn't home because they were active duty military. I mean, I'm telling you, I was so surprised at how often that was what I came across. But the vast majority of people, there was no like hostile environments at all. Everybody was, as soon as they hear libertarian, it was like, wait a minute, I'm not. It's basically the same way that I had felt before I started, which was, wait, I thought I was alone here, you know. So yeah, we just got out and knocked, and then started organizing, and I'll be honest, this first year has been a lot of fun. There has been a lot of the piecing together, like I said, sifting through bylaws and voting in new things and this, that, and the other, but all of that has to
It's a
happen.
marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's a really good way to put
It
it.
just really is.
Yeah.
And I applaud you for taking those first couple of miles on the marathon. and I, listen,
It's the only marathon I'm running these days, so.
Right. Connecticut was one of the first nations to engage in the War of Independence against Great Britain. Of course, Rhode Island was the first. I just have to remind people of that. I'll always say just about every week, there's a bunch of guys up in Massachusetts think this is like shot heard around the world. No. Burning of the Gaspee, Rhode Island, it started here. So
I'm gonna have to read up on that.
yeah, no, it's true.
I believe you.
I read it on the internet.
Yeah.
How can folks get in touch with you?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you can reach out to me on Facebook, email. So my Facebook is just Lance Leduc, LanceLeduc. You can, and that's if you're looking for any information, especially if you're looking for information on where to start, how to start in terms of building an affiliate. I don't have all the answers, but now through my year of learning, I've built up contacts with people that I can reach out to help find answers. My email. I have a state LP email, and that's just lleduc@lpct.org, or just coachlance2@gmail.com. I'm on there a little bit more often. But yeah, reach out, find somebody. You're not alone. You're not alone. And if it helps, if I can be a part of helping, just connect you with somebody, especially, I'm guessing the majority of your listeners are somewhat local. I now, through the past year, you'd be surprised how just networking, even online, you start meeting or getting to know people even just through social media. I already have, so even if you're from Worcester, Mass, and you're like, hey, how do I start? I have a couple people up in that direction that I might be able to get a hold of and say, hey, here's a couple people, so now you're not alone.
And the Mises Group is also a very, very good way to reach out.
Yeah, they are. Listen, if you're looking for a caucus that, the work that Michael Heist does it's unbelievable. That guy doesn't stop. He doesn't stop.
No, you don't either.
Well,
but no, they
I stop more than he does. I'll say that. That guy is so in and so involved, and he just, I've had a few conversations with him over the phone. Hopefully I'll meet him soon one day, and, he through learning who he was and what he's trying to do and what he's accomplished, and, they're giving out, speaking about helping local affiliates, they're trying to look for local affiliates and that they can give money to. The Mises Caucus just started their own PAC, and they were able to, for those who don't know who Maj Toure is, he's actually coming to Hartford. We're going to, the beginning of September, the Black Guns Matter guy, he's coming, he's running for Libertarian
City Council
in Philadelphia, yeah, and
how amazing would that be?
The work he's doing in these inner cities is incredible, and hopefully he gets on the city council there, and but he's still doing the Black Guns Matter thing, and bringing self-defense and awareness to their 2A rights to these inner cities, and he's coming to Hartford, and I've through Mike been able to contact Maj's people and try to get our Libertarian Party at that event to be able to present a little bit of how we can help politically in helping these people with their right to defend themselves.
Right.
And
When you look at communities that have become marginalized economically and or as far as politically, and I look at the Black Guns Matter community, I look at the LGBTQ community where there are folks doing groundbreaking work on 2A within the LGBTQA community. I have nothing but props for them, because then you're confronting the liberal beast, the liberal control, right? And I've always said to people, never be afraid of diving right into the quote unquote enemy territory. And folks in the liberal progressive community have thought they've owned that vote for years, and it's folks like him who are freeing people of those preconceptions. So
yeah, no, he's doing amazing work, and I'm hoping that we can get involved with what he's doing in Hartford, and
let us know about that event. Let us people here in Rhode Island.
yeah, I'm trying to right now. It's he's a national guy. He's doing all kinds of work. Plus, he's got his own campaign that is in a really busy home stretch now. So it's I've been contacting his people, going back and forth a little bit, but it looks like we'll be able to make it work. And yeah, the more the merrier. We get out there, show our face, and let these people know how we can help too.
Great. We got a little long. We're a little bit out of time, but first of all, thanks for getting here early. We had our first guest who had to shorten her time, so I appreciate you diving right in.
No problem.
We will get this out on the YouTube and on the Facebook and on the podcast, and ask people to take a look at it, take a listen. There's a lot of lessons packed into a little over an hour, and
Flew by.
don't be a stranger. This is you got issues going on. You guys, Connecticut got issues going on. Just the door's open.
Sure will.
We're trying to get indie media of all shapes and sizes that are allied with the libertarian community to start working together to amplify the libertarian message. We can no longer wait for the mainstream media to give us the time that I believe our ideas deserve. Therefore, we can either wait for them or we can simply build our own. And the way we do that is for all of the indie media outlets to recognize each other's work, promote each other's work, and share each other's ideas and guests, so that we as an organization collectively, love that word with libertarians, right? But we can gain how about this, the economies of scale necessary to compete with the messages that are coming out of MSNBC,
That was the
CNN,
most
all right, or
libertarian way of putting it.
there you go.
Well done.
All right, well done for you too.
Yes, thank you. Can I thank a few people, because we couldn't have been able to build the affiliate without the help of Matt and Christine and Tara and Nathan and Russ and Mike, and I'm gonna miss some people, but these are all active members that are showing up to meetings every single month. Nathan, I'm gonna forget a few, and it's a shame because they've all done so much work to help me and help the affiliate. So I just wanted to throw their names out there.
Excellent. God bless you, lad.
Thank you.
Well, that's it for tonight. We are the Coalition, loud and proud, outrage porn free, civilly disobedient media, broadcasting live here at the Go Local Live Broadcast Center at the Worldwide Coalition Media Network. Facebook.com/The Coalition Radio. On the mighty Twitter at Coalition_radio. And of course the mothership, coalitionradio.us, where you'll find links directly to our Spreaker podcast page, our YouTube page, and soon we're on Spotify. I'll figure out how to condense the link to be less than 75 characters so that we can put our Spotify link up there as well. I want to thank all of our sponsors tonight. I want to thank all of our guests. We understand that on Friday evenings or even during the week, if you might listen to this, you got plenty of places to go. You can listen to some great stuff. I was on Drunk and Disorderly just a week or so ago. Great time, great podcast. All right, it's a point. If you're a libertarian, it's appointment listening. But we appreciate the time that you take to be here. We'll keep you up to date on what the developments are going to be as far as next weekend's activities. We may be remote broadcasting in a way that I never would have guessed I would have ever been involved in. So we appreciate your support in that respect. And if you don't mind, take a moment, go to Patreon, go to Venmo, and help support Indie Media. Have a great night. We'll see you next week.